The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan J. Schlender presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Schlender.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of Ferrari versus Maestro. Ferrari is a 2023 sport drama that follows the tribulations of auto magnate Enzo Ferrari while showcasing his eponymous cars. Maestro is a 2023 biographical drama too. In it, we follow the life of musician Leonard Bernstein and how he conducted himself in public and private affairs.
I get it.
It's going to be the only joke I have all night. Yes, that's the joke. Okay, where am I? For those of you, Maynard, unfamiliar with our court proceedings, in civil cases like this, the counsel appointed to represent each film will present their case for why their client is the superior movie. And ultimately, the jury will render its verdict as to which is the better film. This decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on until the end of time, ad infinitum.
Oh, wait, Your Honor, and it's to get the nomination in the Oscars for Best Picture. If Ferrari beats Maestro, it gets the nomination.
It was
the Academy has agreed to that.
Oh, okay. So, allow me
You didn't know that?
I didn't know how many layers we were packing into this episode.
That's the layers.
Okay. This decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on until the end of time, ad infinitum. And, as an added bonus, the winner will receive a nomination for Best Picture from the Academy. Mr. Make Them Make the Mistake, Ryan Luis Rodriguez, you are representing Ferrari. You may begin your opening statement.
Okay. We're in an interesting place here. First off, as always, I'm going to say things that I don't believe, which is not to say that I'm going to say things that are untrue. Secondly, we're discussing two movies that I would not call great. It's A Gentleman's 6 versus A Gentleman's 7, advantage me. It's weird to compare Maestro to Ferrari, because aside for the capital G, capital M, great man narrative, they really have very little in common. They go about their objectives in incredibly different ways and have unique strengths and weaknesses. All I know is that I've seen both films twice. Ferrari initially in theaters, Maestro both times on Netflix, a yuck, and I'm more convinced than ever that Maestro ultimately fumbles the ball in several ways, conducts a messy symphony, if you will, whereas Ferrari crosses the finish line with some juice still left in the tank. I love metaphors. I'm not good at using them, but I love them, I think. Maybe I'm thinking of similes. Anyway, I'm just vamping for time at this point. Let's let Brad step in. Thank you. Case dismissed.
Not quite. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Appearing on behalf of Maestro is Mad Brad Gibson. Please present your opening statement.
Thank you.
There's too much going on in this episode, guys.
Yes, there is. Very busy. All right, here we go. Friends, Romans, countrymen, racing enthusiasts, and music lovers. I come here today not to bury the Bradley Cooper biopic of Leonard Bernstein's Maestro, but to praise it in the context of a comparison between Maestro and Michael Mann's Ferrari, starring Adam Driver. I feel exactly the opposite about the films than Ryan does. I like them both. I thought they both were great films. They're both I rate highly for different strengths. I will endeavor to prove here today that Maestro is the better film, that it has the edge in entertainment value through the performances of Bradley Cooper and his co-star Carey Mulligan, and the sublime ethereal music of genius composer and conductor Leonard Bernstein. The watershed moment in each film is a spectacular set piece, but one results in a shocking car crash and death, where the other delivers an emotional tour de force of Cooper as Bernstein conducting Mahler's Second Symphony in the same Ely Cathedral where Bernstein himself conducted that symphony. Maestro is, of course, for now, the one nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. They both focus on one person, but where Maestro is centered on the relationship between Leonard Bernstein and his wife Felicia, Ferrari is more of a memoir of a specific time in Enzo Ferrari's life and the life of his iconic car company.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
My first exhibit concerns the acting. Ferrari stars Adam Driver, and yes, he does a version of an Italian accent. You may recall this accent from a film that came up during our Pope's Exorcist case, House of Gucci, which ironically co-stars the lead of Bradley Cooper's directorial debut, and if you think he can't do Italian, you may be right. But I know for sure that he has improved his game. It's no more distracting than the voice of Bradley Cooper putting on in Maestro, which sounds like he spent a couple of days listening to old interviews of Leonard Bernstein and decided, yeah, I think I got it. I can't remember it every time, but I think it's fine. But the biggest difference between the two lead performances is that one is a frame hog who tends to steamroller over his scene partners by always having a bit of business to distract the viewer, like inexplicably changing his socks or constantly signaling to the lit cigarette in his hand. The other lead is a sure hand, who always brings his A game and allows scenes to breathe, allows his fellow actors to elevate the material. To borrow a phrase from the opposing film, it's a concert. Ironic, right? The frame hog, Bradley Cooper. The scene breather, Adam Driver. But the best thing about both films are the strength of the lead female actors, namely Carey Mulligan and Penelope Cruz. Now, I refuse to believe that Carey Mulligan is from Santiago, Chile, but she is a force in Maestro, which is not surprising based on her previous work, going all the way back to An Education and as recently as Promising Young Woman. Cooper wisely gave her top billing, even though she's definitely not the star of the movie, and she manages to outshine the frame hog every time she's given the chance. Penelope Cruz, though, nothing made me angrier during the Academy Award announcements last month than when I noticed that she did not receive a nomination. She's absolutely electric and infuses this defeated, defiant woman with such humanity and gravitas. Every time she's on screen, you want her to thrive. Now, maybe she wasn't eligible for Best Actress because she doesn't appear in perhaps more than 12 minutes of an 130-minute movie, but even if that's the case, at least give her supporting. She keeps fucking shredding it and not receiving the proper consideration. She should at least have one trophy on her mantelpiece at home, maybe for Parallel Mothers. But let's not turn this case into speculative fiction. Anyway, I cede the floor.
All right, Mr. Gibson, let's do exactly what Ryan did. Compare the lead actors and the lead actresses. What do you got?
So let's talk about that a bit. Yes. I like Adam Driver. I'm actually a huge Adam Driver fan, but I felt like his portrayal of Ferrari in Ferrari was really cold. Now, that may be a reflection of the man himself. There's a part of Ferrari where it's basically clear that he's telling his drivers that they should be willing to die for him. And more than one does, in fact, die for him. So it depends on what you're going to the movies for. Are you going to the movies to see this cold, manipulative 60-year-old man who, is seeing his legacy fade away, who is disregarding his faithful wife, and who has turned his attentions to his mistress and the child he has with her? Or one of the points about Leonard Bernstein that the Maestro film makes repeatedly is that he was a warm person. He certainly had his faults, and he was certainly not always kind. But in the end, he always did revert back to his sort of warmer personality. I feel like Cooper brought that out very well, and that he sort of inhabited Bernstein. He looked like him. He affected his particular idiosyncrasies. I believe all of the business that Ryan was referring to was something you would see Leonard Bernstein do. He was a fidgety person who didn't sit down for long. He was one of these people that gets 4 hours of sleep a night and then goes and conducts, a symphony, and always wants to be with people and always wants to be active. which would be the exact opposite of me, as a matter of fact. But so, and also the two female leads. I have to say, in that respect, that I completely agree with Ryan. I can't argue those points.
Oh, no.
Right.
I'm the judge here. Time out. Brad, don't say that. You want to win, all right?
It's okay, Ryan's not in the jury.
I do want to win, but he's right about the award, the Oscar nomination. I'm a huge fan of Carey Mulligan's work ever since she was in Drive. I think that's the first place I saw her with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, she's so good in that movie.
It's that movie. I can watch that movie every day. And then what was the film Promising Young Woman? I think I got the title right.
No, you're right.
She's amazing in that film. I'm absolutely a devoted fan to Carey Mulligan, and I will watch anything she does. But in the end, I want to see a film that tells a warm story about people who come to grips with who they are and ultimately are good to the people around them. And I don't think that describes Enzo Ferrari.
All right, Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to redirect or move on to your next point?
I'd like to move on to my next point.
Very well.
And hunker down, because it's kind of a long one.
I love
Actually,
it.
the next two arguments are pretty long, so I apologize ahead of time.
It's the Mahler second of arguments.
Yes, exactly. I have no idea what that means, but yes, exactly. So I want to touch upon biopics. Biopics are an inherently frustrating variety in cinema. A lot of the worst examples try to compress an entire life into a 2-hour time frame, which reduces the essence of humanity, time, fleeting time, to a series of significant events. The better example of the subgenre focuses on a narrow time frame, using a momentous event as a way to psychoanalyze a usually deceased human being. With Maestro, it's the former. As the director, writer, and star, Bradley Cooper traverses 45 years from 1943 to 1987. And honestly, I know just as much about him now as I did before I saw the film. And the first time I saw it, I kept wondering, when is he going to write Hallelujah? Because I didn't realize that I was thinking of Leonard Cohen, not Bernstein. And I've seen West Side Story.
Where's Bob Dylan?
After giving 4 hours of my time to Maestro, I still don't really know what a conductor does. Are the musicians looking at them? Don't they have to read sheet music? I may be dumb, but I think I have a point. I think Cooper was attracted to the material, not because he had something to say about Leonard Bernstein, but because he needed a vanity project after the success of A Star is Born and thought, yeah, that's how I finally get my Oscar. On the other hand, the latter category of biopics, we have Ferrari, which takes place in 1957, 10 years after Enzo Ferrari founded his motor company, preparing for a huge race that I cannot pronounce and am not foolhardy enough to try. We see the event as it relates to his relationship with his long-suffering wife, whom he has been cheating on, resulting in an illegitimate son, and how the pressures of sagging sales and disappointing racing results essentially trap him in a prison of masculinity. Unlike Maestro, it's not confused about what it is. Is it a great man movie or a tortured love story? Both? Neither. I can't honestly say that I'm an expert on Enzo Ferrari 130 minutes later, but I think I got at least a superficial glimpse into his life. And unlike Leonard Bernstein, I'm not wondering, is he the guy who developed the Lamborghini?
Would you like to address this, Mr. Gibson, the memoir versus full biography argument that Ryan brought up?
I would, yes, I could address that. And I would actually say, for me, those were selling points of the film. We did get vignettes on Bernstein's life back from the time when he worked on West Side Story and all the way through his performance I mentioned before in Ely Cathedral, doing Mahler's second. We did get, it's not a traditional film structure. It's not a 3-act story. It's the complicated, messy story of a real person's life. Whereas the Ferrari film is more of a memoir. My complaint with the Ferrari film is that it is slow as hell until that last half hour or so. And then, you've sort of been watching this movie about a man that it's hard to tell if it's is this a story about the company's financial woes which everyone remembers, if anyone remembers the film from a few years ago called Ford versus Ferrari. Or is it a story about his marital infidelities, his problems with his wife and his mistress, and the child that died with his wife, and then the one that lives with his mistress, who, by the way, went on to run the Ferrari company for many years? Or is it a story about a man dealing with grief? I mean, it's hard to say what this movie is until that car crash. And then, at least I did, you stop the film, because I watched it on Netflix as well. You go to Wikipedia and you're like, holy shit, that happened. A driver, Enzo Ferrari, took an open cockpit car at 150 miles an hour through the Italian countryside. It blew a tire and killed 11 people. And he actually went to trial for it. I mean, that's where the movie should have started. The other stuff was kind of interesting, but I don't feel like those are weaknesses. I feel like I did learn about Bernstein. Now, I'm a fan of both Broadway musicals and of classical music, so I already knew a little bit about Leonard Bernstein, and I know that REM song real well. But I would argue, contrary to what Ryan said, that those are strengths, not weaknesses.
All right. Mr. Rodriguez, would you like to redirect or move on to your next point?
I want to redirect just slightly, just to give a little anecdote, and that I don't think that Ferrari is slow. I think that it's meditative. Is that the proper way of saying that?
Yeah, you got it.
That's something that Michael Mann does frequently. He's a very much a vibes-oriented filmmaker, and I think that with that kind of languid pace, I won't call it slow, I'll call it languid, meditative. I think that he's trying to speak to the fact that we don't really know this person. And I think that he actually does that very well. But perfect points raised by Brad, so well done. I will move on next to my final point.
Very good, sir.
And that concerns what we can see with our eyes and process with our reptilian hindbrains. Cinematography.
I like this.
Nothing to take away from Maestro, shot by the brilliant Matthew Libatique, who also shot A Star is Born, which also looks amazing. Unfortunately, it also looks kind of pretentious. The grainy black and white Academy ratio section of the film screams, "Look at me, Oscar voters! This is important! What's going on right now?" The man knows texture. The man knows light and shadow. The man knows how to shoot on film in a digital age. But there's something about the less showy Ferrari that is more aesthetically pleasing, even though it was shot, yes, on digital. And I say this as a die-hard celluloid supporter. Michael Mann has been shooting his films digitally, at least partially, since Ali in 2001, a full year before George Lucas released the first mainstream, almost fully digitally photographed film, Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones. But while Lucas shot digitally and tried to demonstrate to the viewing public how much it could look like film to the naked eye, Mann pushed the format to the bleeding edge. He wanted to take advantage of things that only digital could do, specifically low-light photography in nighttime scenes, and the way that digital noise grain contributes to the mood of any given scene. Like I mentioned earlier, the vibes. Eric Messerschmitt's work on Ferrari is less radical than work like Miami Vice, which is the pinnacle of digital as far as I'm concerned. But it revels in the low light, taking scenes that exist in practical darkness with just the actors barely illuminated, without sacrificing form and clarity. The increasingly smaller built cameras are better utilized during the race photography, allowing the director and cinematographer to get closer to the action without having to put vehicles on trailers to do overhead flyover shots that didn't have to be shot on drones. It's Mann's least showy work since The Insider 24 years earlier, but in doing so, it suffers less from look at me disease than Maestro. I'm not surprised it wasn't nominated in the category. I probably wouldn't even put it in the top 10 of 2023, but it's certainly beautiful. And with that, I rest.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. Gibson, you may present your first exhibit or address anything that Ryan just brought up. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I thought I had presented my first exhibit. I'm running out of exhibits. Let's talk about Cooper's obsession. We will cede the fact that Cooper is obsessed with first and foremost in the world, Bradley Cooper.
If I was Bradley Cooper, I'd be obsessed with myself too.
I was going to say,
if you're obsessed with yourself now.
All people named Bradley are clearly superior. However, he's really got a corner on that market. He spent, the man is completely obsessed. So let's compare and contrast the obsessions. The obsession in Ferrari is Enzo Ferrari's obsession with winning. There's nothing else to him. People die, whatever. He doesn't care. He doesn't sell cars. The company goes bankrupt. I must win these races. That's interesting. But I think more interesting is Bradley Cooper's pure lifelong obsession, both with classical music and with conducting. He talks in interviews about the fact that he was conducting to symphonies as a child in his bedroom. I mean, that's a little weird, but it's cool. And
it is.
I think we're stretching the definition of the word cool here, but I'll let you continue.
Sustained.
He also would go. He's also, let's not forget, also the director of this film. So he directed. He would go in at 3 a.m. To sit in the makeup chair so that he was in Bernstein makeup when the cast and crew arrived. Then he would direct all day, and then he would go sleep for a couple of hours. I mean, this is an extraordinary person. He's either just one of those once in a generation people, or he's insane. And it's not to say he couldn't be both, but he's still a relatively young man. And so God knows what we're going to see from him next. This is breathtaking to me, the accomplishment he pulled off doing this. I want to talk for a minute about the prosthetic that he wears. He and the makeup designer, whose name eludes me at the moment, worked a long time on getting that look so that it was somewhere between Cooper's natural look. So you wouldn't look at the screen and say, oh, that's Bradley Cooper, I know him. And it didn't look exactly like Leonard Bernstein either. So they arrived at something in the middle. They worked for a long time on that. There was a lot of sort of dust up in the press around, he's imitating the Jewish nose. It's Jew face. And he, I believe his heart was pure on that. The family of Leonard Bernstein worked with him on this film. They allowed shooting to take place in the actual places where Leonard Bernstein grew up and his homes. And they signed off on everything, as did the Anti-Defamation League. So I think that's an argument that doesn't hold water. I don't think that can be counted against the film. The conducting consultant, I'll pause there for a second to see if there's any response.
Nope.
Right. The conducting consultant.
I thought you needed his name. It's like Alexi something.
Hero, something like that. Hiko.
Yeah.
The film's conducting consultant is the New York Metropolitan Opera music director, Yannick Nezet-Seguin. I'm sure I just destroyed his name. He worked with Cooper to get him his conducting chops up. And then by the end of it, he said Cooper could come and conduct at the Met whenever he wanted to. He could guest conduct because he thought he had actually done it that well. The man was just supposed to be a consultant, and he fell in love with Bradley Cooper, and he said, you can do this. This is something that's in your blood. You can do it. The other interesting thing I thought about the shooting of the film was he actually shot the Ely Cathedral Mahler's second twice. They did it, and Cooper didn't feel like it was right. There was nothing in the budget or the schedule that allowed him to do that again. But the next morning he reassembled everyone and he said, I really need to do that again. And then that second take is what we see in the film. And it's 6 minutes of the most pure joy of film. You could watch just that 6 minutes and go away happy because it's astonishing what he accomplished there.
A quick question from the bench. So Bradley Cooper is actually conducting the orchestra in that scene.
He is.
Okay.
He has earpieces in and he's getting notes from Yannick, but he's doing it. And he did it twice. And one of the players in the orchestra, and it really is the orchestra, one of the players in the orchestra came to him and said, throw away everything we did yesterday. You conducted us today. And I thought that was a pretty interesting, that's a moment in movie history that will be remembered. The other thing we haven't touched on yet is the fact that Leonard Bernstein he was at least bisexual and maybe homosexual, probably the latter. And he had affairs with men all his life. When the movie touches on this, but when he met Felicia, she knew who he was and what he was about. She loved him anyway. They went on to have a family and children because that's what you did in the 50s and the 60s. and she was accepting of him. And as time went by, we do see this caused some rifts between them, more because of his substance and alcohol abuse than his affairs. But the affairs were wearing on his public persona, and he struggled with rumors of rumors, worst kept secret in Hollywood, that sort of thing. But she really loved him, and then at the end, of course, he sees her through her breast cancer and her death, and then he goes on to still be a happy man. He always missed her. She was the love of his life, despite his sexual orientation, and he always missed her. And he talked about her all the way through to the end of his life. And so, for me, it's just a heartwarming film, and it tells a light and lovely story about this wonderful man who brought us so much music, and who ultimately is an interesting character, despite the fact that he was played by an actor who's intensely obsessed with himself and wants to be seen.
Well, wouldn't it be fair to say that Bernstein was obsessed with himself too?
Absolutely. They were very similar personalities.
So I guess a question from the bench for you, Brad, is what is the takeaway from Maestro? Like, what's the lesson here? When we get done watching the movie, like Ryan said, after Ferrari, we understand the man better. What do we understand better about Bernstein after Maestro?
I did not myself know, because I hadn't read any biographies or didn't know him that well. I didn't know about his agreement with Felicia when they got married. I didn't know that sort of thing was done. I mean, you would assume it was during that time, but I found that fascinating. So the takeaway, I would say, is acceptance and genius make an excellent pair. And she gave up an acting career to support him. And so that was the magic that made his life work. She subverted everything to him for that. And, is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know, but she did it, and he thrived.
Ryan, would you care to comment on what Brad's asserting here?
Well, that's, I guess, I mean, I can see how you can read that from the film. That's just not what I took away from it. I honestly, I don't understand the man, and I wish I did. That's what frustrates me about this movie, is that it's good, but the fact it feels obtuse to me, and it makes me feel kind of stupid, because I look at the rave reviews of other people, and I listen to the cogent arguments of Brad, and I wish I saw that, but I don't. And I just want to touch upon some brief things that Brad brought up, because he brought up a lot.
Yeah,
I
please.
think that the nose is not a problem. The nose does not bother me. Again, I'm not Jewish, so I don't really have a right to speak to that. I think that the more distracting makeup is the old age, your grandparents living in Florida, orange skin, that I think is just, oh boy, oh, and the neck waddle. Oh, the neck waddle. Oh. And
you object to that because, I mean, did it just grossed you out or what?
It grossed me the fuck out. I hated it. I don't like seeing neck waddles on sexy 40-year-olds. It's not good.
Ryan has said that before. So
I say it all the time.
Yeah,
it's
all the time.
It's engraved on my headstone that I have picked out.
It's a deal breaker.
And ironically, on my headstone, it says died in 2030. So I'm calling that right now. 7 more years, baby. Or 6 more years, rather. But yeah, great case. I have no notes.
Okay, very good. Brad, anything else you'd like to bring up?
I don't think so. I would say, again, I started with this idea, but I liked Ferrari, but I liked Maestro better. I think Maestro is a better film. I wish Ferrari had gotten to the meat of what the memoir was really about faster. Although,
no pun intended.
Yeah, that's fine. That said, I would watch the film again and probably will.
All right. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Rodriguez, you may begin.
Wow. I said a lot this time. Not my favorite thing to do, but that's just how things shook out. Look, I like both movies on trial this week. I just happen to like one a little more than the other. Michael Mann is a master, and I definitely don't want to wait another 8 years before his next film, but the man is 81 years old. Unless he contracts the Ridley Scott virus, he's probably not making another movie ever again, and that fills me with profound sadness. Bradley Cooper will make more movies, probably many more, so he's kind of the opposite voice to reward this early. The man has made 2 films, one of which was great, but he's been nominated for both. Don't allow him to steal your focus and attention. He will be back. Do you really know anything about Leonard Bernstein other than the fact that he was a bisexual conductor? Because I don't. Do you really know anything about Enzo Ferrari other than the fact that he was a maritably unfaithful car manufacturer? Maybe not, but I think you know enough. So put the pedal to the metal and leave West Side Story boy in the dust. Ferrari forever and always. Thank you. Case dismissed.
Okay, the case is not dismissed, but thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Soon.
Mr. Gibson, please present your closing argument.
That was some excellent rhetorical gymnastics there. All right, here's my closing argument. Maestro versus Ferrari isn't apples to oranges. It's passion for race cars versus passion for music. And as we've brought out here, possibly passion for Bradley Cooper's passion for Bradley Cooper. There are some comparable elements in these two obsessions, but only one of them leads to the fiery death of at least 11 people, although there is a gut punch death in Maestro that comes late in the film. But Maestro is an emotionally vulnerable performance in directing, acting, and conducting by Bradley Cooper versus the icy precision of Michael Mann and Adam Driver. There are certainly different delights in each film. Both will likely spark an interest in going out and learning more about those subjects and their lives, which I think is a great result from any biopic. But Maestro, like Leonard Bernstein himself, glows with an affection and an emotional warmth. Again, it depends on what you're in the mood for from a film, but most people will walk away from Maestro a little sad, a little happy, and completely satisfied. I don't know that you can say that about Ferrari. Ferrari, you learned some history. You learned about a hard man who did some questionable things and also some good things. So as regards the film, the last word I'll say about it is the same answer Adam Driver gave when given a confrontational question by the foreign press during the press junket when he was traveling. They asked him if the car crash was too much, coming at a shocking moment, as it did when nothing else in the film had been like that. And his final words, as are mine, were, "Fuck you, I don't know, next question."
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Best Ben Haslar, and Dylan J. Schlender, you have all heard the facts concerning...
You say it as if you've never seen the name before.
I've never...
Who would name their kid Dylan J. Schlender? What a weird
I don't know.
name.
Well, you know what? The Mr. got the lead.
Read the thing!
Okay. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine which film is the superior movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. I heard Will Smith was releasing an Oscar special edition where Chris Rock slaps first.
Why would Will Smith release that?
Because he's the one that would benefit, I guess. All right. Oh, these movies, I don't know. They're such Oscar baity movies. I hate Oscar bait. I hate them.
That is not true.
Maynard No, I do. No, especially
your favorite movie of the year is Oscar bait.
No. Okay, Oppenheimer feels like it's made with like a certain love for the character.
No, it's total
These
Oscar
are like
bait.
made to.
Total Oscar bait. I'm not saying everything Nolan does is, but that one was.
Yeah,
biopics to me scream. Biopics scream Oscar bait.
In the same way that, like, to bring this to this case, in the same way like Maestro like opens with that aspect ratio in black and white, where you're just like from the very first second you're thinking, oh, well, that's meant to appeal to the Academy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's like The Artist all over again. That was bad though. You're not wrong, Ben. We're just pointing out that you were wrong about Oppenheimer.
You're just always wrong.
We're just pointing out that you're wrong about yourself.
Yeah. So, man, what do you think about the case?
Oh, really good case. When we get two people who really know what they talk about movies, we get some stuff. Unfortunately, you got to get Ryan in there because the rest three of us, we can't do it. One big point: Penelope Cruz is the standout of either film. I thought she was the best part, like best single performance out of either film. And the fact that Brad could not even argue that, big point in Ferrari's case. And Brad was trying to say that the crash was bad, but it was kind of the most interesting that happened. Like,
I think the crash was bad. Did you guys like that? Because I'll say, from my perspective,
I didn't like the last mannequin body or whatever they showed.
Yeah, they're all CGI bodies. Like, I don't even think they were mannequins. I don't think any of those bodies were there.
Yeah,
I thought they were mannequins.
I thought you could have done that scene a lot better without the graphic bodies. Like the point was made, you know. It kind of So
and the
horrible
way the car
seeing it
flips
with the
too. It just like hits a thing, and then all of a sudden it's like 20 feet in the air. How the hell did that happen?
I mean, he was going at like 120 miles an hour.
Yeah,
I mean, like
it happens.
That's
for sure.
a lot, yeah, dude.
Yeah, cars can go flying pretty easy. And then as far as the best single scene, although I liked the crash, the best single scene, Brad, to his point, was the conducting. And I was very impressed by Cooper. And all I was wondering was, you know, is he pantomiming? Does he have movements memorized? And to find out that he may have been doing it entirely on his own and that they were actually following him very much impresses me. And acting or not, he looks like he's having a fantastic time. So those scenes are so strong.
But Lou and Ballistic, just saying.
a lot of Maestro is slow though.
You know, I want to jump in on Maestro because I think Ryan raised a very interesting point. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bernstein and classical music, and I think we just need to acknowledge that Leonard Bernstein's a great man, but he didn't lead a particularly narratively interesting life. Like the most important things he did was like introduce Mahler and Ives into the repertoire. And how do you make a movie out of that? You know, so when Ryan comes away scratching his head, like, I didn't learn much about him except he was a bisexual conductor. It's like, well, it's true. We didn't even see the Radical Chic party that Tom Wolfe wrote about. Like, that was the most interesting thing Leonard Bernstein did outside his musical career, completely omitted from the movie. I was shocked.
Oh, wow.
How did you feel about Enzo Ferrari, like, going in? Did you know anything about him?
So I did not know anything about Enzo Ferrari. I have a soft spot for Adam Driver. I thought I just liked his look right away, so I was there for that. I thought Bradley Cooper actually looked really good as Bernstein as well. But I do like, again, another point to Ryan, I liked his argument about doing these huge biopics versus doing more of a confined memoir piece. I think these memoir pieces work better, and I think we take away more about Enzo Ferrari as a man, and because of the way, like Ryan said, that Driver let Penelope Cruz play off him so well. I mean, there's two comparable scenes in the movie when both couples are fighting, right? We have the Macy's Days fight, and then we have the fight about Enzo Ferrari's dead son when she finds out about the illegitimate son. That fight, because of Penelope Cruz, is just tremendously more emotional and cinematic than the Cooper affair fight that they have with the Macy's Day Parade in the background, you know. So that's another point. And again, that was something that even Gibson conceded, that the Penelope Cruz was so strong, and it was that scene in particular, because it certainly wasn't the numerous scenes of her banking. I don't know why we need to see her at the bank like 4 times.
She got all her info there.
Oh my God.
It's true. That is our exposition.
Well, yeah. Okay. But okay. We do it like one time, but anyway, yeah. So I thought that was a very good point. So I just thought Ryan just brought up some very, very good points, even though I'm such a huge fan of Leonard Bernstein. And I do agree too with that conducting of Mahler's second, because that is such a hard piece to direct. I mean, you've got like 100 people playing instruments. You've got a choir. You have
the camera was just on Cooper, though. Like, camera was just on Cooper.
The movie is about him, and actually, so this idea
about
of
Cooper or
that. well, that's the thing. It's like Bernstein. He had the cult of Bernstein. I mean, we can't appreciate how much that man was on television. Like, he was one of the most famous people in America during his career by no small margin, and we've kind of forgotten.
Well, we just watched a movie about him, and I didn't learn that.
Yes, that's another piece of it. So that's where I'm really coming down to Ryan's argument. It's like there are things about Bernstein that are interesting, that from more of a trivia point of view, but just they're not narratively interesting. So there's just not a lot of interesting things about Bernstein to capture for the screen, except his conducting, which you can watch on YouTube anyway. So yes, it's that one conducting scene. Yeah, well, and it's in the end credits too. Get out of here.
Here.
That's the thing. It's like that. So yeah, everything that's interesting about Bernstein is already out there and isn't served well by a biopic. Whereas if they could have done a memoir about his radical chic party, I would have been very interested. I would have been very interested in seeing that movie. I don't know if they've ever made a movie about
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, it's so that the subtitle is that party at Lenny's, right? So that's what it would be. So, I'm not the foreman, so yeah, I'm gonna lock in. I did enjoy both movies. I think Ryan's ratings of them, Gentlemen 6 and 7, is probably where I'm at. I'm interested in more people watching Maestro, so it opens up the conversation about classical music and the American repertoire and great American conductors. But today I'm going with the memoir. I'm going with Ferrari.
Mr. Maynard?
I usually like to keep it interesting for Big Ben, but I'm afraid not this time, because I think the most compelling arguments were on Ferrari, especially the performance of Cruz, and just how that story moved along a lot better. I feel like I learned more about Ferrari at the end of that. And Ryan's great point that this could be, the last movie, to give man the last Oscar you can get, so Bradley Cooper can get more. So I'm going to go in for Ferrari.
Big Ben, it all comes down to you.
Oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Unfortunately, I'm kind of with you. I really think it's like the biopic piece. That's the argument that really does it for me. Because like this shortened story is more interesting for me. The lengthened story where you're trying to condense everything and you don't know where to focus on, it always fails for a biopic. As do biopics where they tend to make people like saintly and beyond life, like Bob Marley. Anyway.
So Bradley Cooper's voice, I just realized it hit me. He was doing gay Henry Kissinger. So that's why he was sounding a bit more like this every time.
Maybe he'll do the interview for us. It's just about as good as anything we do, right?
Maybe.
Better, really.
All right, so let's go tell that very handsome judge.
Thank you. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Honorable Dylan J.
We have notes!
Is it? In the case of Ferrari versus Maestro, we find in favor of Ferrari. Vroom, vroom.
These microphones out of my courtroom. What is this nonsense? All right, the verdict is so rendered. Ferrari will hereby serve as a prequel to the Fast and the Furious franchise, with Adam Driver and Vin Diesel teaming up via time travel. Court is adjourned.
And now the Academy has to switch the nominations, and Ferrari's nominated now.
Yes,
so
now
goes out.
The nominations are hereby switched.
Yeah, unless it's too late to change the print-ups.
Well, I don't know. Did I already bang the hammer before we corrected it? We'll never know.
Let's see here.
You just do your Leonard Bernstein impression, like Bradley Cooper
I don't
was
know
doing. You haven't been practicing
that's so
it all
good.
week.
You should have done the interview.
I'll do the interview anyway. This is Bradley Cooper. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I'm absolutely devastated.
You can't do it. You can't do your own interview, and I can't do one as good as you. So I'm totally screwed now. Shut up! I can't do it. I can't do it when you look at me. This is Maynard Bernstein, no relation, reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mad Brad Gibson, would you care to share your thoughts on that jury's verdict?
Well, clearly I do not agree with the jury's verdict, but they arrived at the verdict they arrived at, and we will have to live with it. I will say that had Maestro gone on to be the nominee for the Best Picture, it would not have won, because it ran face first into a wall called Barbenheimer. Where Maestro is kind of a delicate confection, Oppenheimer is the flaming hot Cheeto of cinema from 2022. And that's just an unfortunate fact of timing. So that's my final word on it. Maestro should have won.
Now I have a craving for flaming hot Cheetos. Thank you. Here comes Ryan Luis Rodriguez. Excuse me, could we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
You guys know that literally last year they came out with a movie about flaming hot Cheetos?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, but
it was going to be my recommendation.
Yes, it was
now
mostly made up. Yes, the guy turned out to be a fraud, but still.
But they weren't radioactive.
I'm pleased with how things turned out. I told numerous people before we recorded that I would lose, so I'm happy I didn't. Nobody likes to lose. But
I do.
I'm so glad that Brad came in today, because he delivered a hell of a case, and I'm really pleased that is who I went up against, because I think that he put me on my feet, he put me on the balls of my feet a little bit, and that's always necessary when you're doing a head-to-head. So I want to thank the court. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to put you on the balls of your feet, too. I'm about to make my way to the roof if you'd like to join me. But until that's all the time we have from the courthouse. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis.
That was great, Maynard. You crushed it.
I was inspired by you or something.
You were doing Henry Killinger from the Venture Brothers.
Fine, whatever. I think it read, you know?
This is my magical mother bag.
Really great case. Hopefully the Academy will be able to switch everything, and because we talked about it before, and they were like, sure, whichever one wins.
Let's call PricewaterhouseCooper right now, and
I think we can.
This changes.
We'll get it sorted out. I'm sure. We know the right people.
What, do we need cash now?
Who?
PricewaterhouseCooper. Okay,
so Brad, what have you been up to? We haven't seen you in a while. So what have you been up to lately?
When I was on before, I think it was before my accident, but
yes.
In the summer of 2022, I crashed my bicycle and broke my hip.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't do that.
You don't know that?
I'm still kind of recovering. It's been a year and a half. It takes a long, long time. I'm back on my bike now, but working and doing that, and reviewing a lot of films. I thought 2023 was
for Film Threat.
Yes, that's right. For filmthreat.com. Don't miss it.
Website, obvious fan of the show, definite friend of the show. We've had several people from Film Threat now.
Mm-hmm. Lauren,
Bobby,
boss is a real jerk. Because his boss is Bobby Lapierre, people. It's all good.
That's funny. Everyone over there loves Reels of Justice.
We love them.
That's where I've been. I'm also contemplating, because I'm kind of old as hell, I'm contemplating retirement before too long, which means I'd had plenty of time for this sort of shenanigans, should you be interested in inviting me back.
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Hell yeah, man.
Are you busy next week? Just
not quite that soon, but soon.
We love the idea of people retiring just in order to focus on our show full time.
Jeremy Black did it.
I listened to that one he did about Spectre, about the Bond films, and he's great.
Yes, he's like our number one. He's here like every month. We have a cot in the back for him.
Yeah.
Now, we always ask our guests for recommendations of movies that you think people should see. So what is a movie that you think people should see? If you want to, you could share your favorite movie of the year, if you had one.
I think it's my favorite movie, and I think it's going to win Best Picture, is Oppenheimer. I've always been fascinated by Trinity. There's a declassified documentary film called Trinity and Beyond, and they fixed it was a post-processing thing where they got the film with a Information Act request, and they cleaned it up, and it'll blow your mind. You should definitely watch it. It's called Trinity and Beyond. And I've always had a fascination with the construction of the nuclear weapons and how we got there. And it's such a crazy story that I loved every second of Oppenheimer, even the sort of procedural sitting in the courtroomy stuff. And of course the explosion at Trinity.
I hate to tell you that we put it head to head with Barbie, and Barbie won.
Did you? Okay.
Jeremy Black. It's a Jeremy Black episode. You can go listen to it. Jeremy Black represented Barbie. That was.
I like Barbie too. I don't have any complaints about Barbie. But for me, the films that really touched me. I mean, I love Oppenheimer, and like I said, it fueled me on like a 2-week research rampage, where I read everything I could get my hands on. And if you haven't done that, you should do that. There's a whole story about a thing called the Demon Core. It was a core that they designated for a plutonium bomb, and then the bomb didn't get built. So they were playing with it. They were like doing classes with it. And a couple of people died because they were goofing around with the Demon Core. But
I mean, that sounds right. If you're goofing around with the Demon Core, you're going to die.
Called the Demon Core, guys. Why do you think we named it that way?
For my money, the films that were really touching that were in 2023 were both American Fiction and The Holdovers. I love both of those films. I haven't seen them enough. I'm going to see them both a bunch of times.
I recommended both.
Yeah. They're incredible films. Jeffrey Wright doesn't get enough love. He's an amazing actor. He always has been. And of course, I'll always sit down and watch Paul Giamatti. Now, I want to give an honorable mention, Ava DuVernay's Origin, with Ingenue Ellis Taylor as Isabella Wilkerson. That movie will have you scratching your head, whether you agree with the things it posits or not. It's just a fascinating look at the possible provenance and beginning of a caste system versus what we traditionally think of as racism in the United States. And also the big shout out there is everybody's great in that movie, but John Bernthal needs more recognition. He's a great actor. He has incredible range. I mean, this guy can go from the Punisher to the dead brother in The Bear to this very sweet character in Origin. So more John Bernthal.
And more Punisher.
He's coming. Don't worry.
Now,
he's coming.
Brad, we've been very lucky to have you here tonight. But in a way, you're even luckier because tonight is a very special night. It's the 36th annual Reelsie Awards, the most prestigious event in cinema, probably.
So prestigious, I forgot that we did it last year.
And the previous
35 years, yes.
And I'm here to present our first Reelsie of the night, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender.
Thank you very much, Maynard. Every year, Hollywood churns out another batch of detritus that is often derivative as it is boring, and we have to wade through it. Despite this, we have nominated 4 of our favorite films of the year, and then voted amongst ourselves to determine the best new film of 2023. Your nominees are Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan.
I think that's Brad's choice.
Asteroid City, Wes Anderson.
Yay!
The Iron Claw, Sean Durkin. Yeah! And The Boy and the Heron, Hayao Miyazaki.
Yay!
And the winner is... Oh my God! It seems we have a first in Reelsie history. Everyone, zoom in, take a look. To my knowledge, this is our first tie. So I guess I should say the winners of the Reelsie Award for 2 fine films of 2023 are Asteroid City and The Boy and the Heron. Congratulations, gents.
Representatives from each film regret that they could not be in attendance tonight, as they each consider this show beneath them.
So we got another recommendation then. And Ryan, what's your recommendation?
Oh, I was not prepared for that. Let me pull that up.
For a recommendation, we do it every week.
I was not prepared to do it then. I was prepared to do it, just not then. Okay, so this week's case covered 2 very different kinds of biopics. So my recommendation is another in that long line, a biopic about an electronic device and one of the best films of 2023 that I watched for the first time just days ago, Matt Johnson's Blackberry. Mm-hmm. It loosely adapts the true story of the world's technically first smartphone, the titular device that I just mentioned, and it feels like what would happen if the social network had the aesthetics of a faux documentary and ended with everybody in ruins. It's surprisingly funny, often very tense, and while you can't judge what really happened based on what's on screen, it's absolutely compelling. It makes me want to go back and watch everything that Matt Johnson has done before and wait for what he's going to do next because he has a voice. And by that, I don't just mean that he appears in the film Third Build. Any movie featuring nerds excitedly watching a letterboxed VHS copy of Raiders of the Lost Ark deserves my praise. Blackberry is currently streaming on my second favorite streaming service, the easily named Hulu.
Oh,
yep. Sorry, Dylan, I know. You always think I'm going to mention Tubi. I'm
do.
Never going to mention Tubi.
Tubi's got to be like, what, 11th or 12th?
When you say first favorite, I know it's the Criteria channel, but I hold out hope for second or third.
Tubi is my second favorite streaming site.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you got to ask what's the first.
What's the first, Maynard?
Every other streaming site tied.
God damn it.
You know, I think we have a few more Reelsie Awards to give out, right?
We do. And here to present some of our technical categories is Mr. Maynard Banks.
Thank you. You know, Leonard Bernstein said, I can't live one day without hearing music, playing it, studying it, or thinking about it. And clearly, neither can our next nominees for Best Musical Opening or Closing. And the nominees are Big Ben Haslar, The People vs. The Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yay! Woo, we love Ben.
Mike Natale, The People versus The Mummy.
Yay! Go Mike!
Go Mike!
And last but certainly not least, Maynard Bangs for The People versus Cocaine Bear. And the winner is... What the... Big Ben Haslar, The People versus Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yay!
Yeah!
This is Big Ben Haslar's 6th Reelsie nomination and 3rd win for Best Musical Opening or Closing.
Ben, you gotta come up and make a speech.
I was on my way out. I didn't think I had a chance in winning because Mike Natale had like that great music accompaniment, and I just sing a cappella, so that always loses. So you know what? I'm going to give this to Mike. Mike, check your email for this very real Reelsie that I'm going to be sending your way. Thank you.
Great. Schlenzo, you were the judge. What's your recommendation?
I was the judge, and in that spirit, I am going to be judging this next recommendation very harshly because it could never be confused for an Oscar contender, and that's 2023's Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. I grew up loving Transformers, and I was a huge fan of Beast Wars. It was like Transformers: The Next Generation. So when I saw that Optimus Primal was going to grace the big screen, I ran out and eagerly awaited for it to arrive to streaming. And now that I have seen it, I can tell you it was not worth the wait at all. The series is out of breath. You can't even call this movie a last gasp. You can only call it a corpse. I have no idea what they are trying to do anymore because I am sure this won't even sell toys. In defense of this movie, they limit the human element to basically 2 folks. But they can't act and are barely articulate. The amount of mumbling we are treated to is borderline offensive. The look and feel of the robots is not much better, and opting to have the climax in a grayed out South American mountain was as bold as it was stupid. Unicron is in this, and he can't even save it. Transformers: Rise of the Beast is risable, to say the least. Streaming on MGM, but I'm sure there's something better on there. Better yet, just watch Beast Wars. Support your local library.
Real fans saw it in theaters.
Oh yeah, well, sure.
pretty sure I went to see it in theaters. I mean, it was stupid. What did you think was going to happen?
But this is exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Well, then what are you complaining about? Now, to present the award for
warning everyone.
Excuse me, I need to present the award. I need to introduce the person presenting the award for the Mumbly Mumblerson Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Court Reportership. Now, to present the award for the Mumbly Mumblerson Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Court Reportership is close personal friend of Mumbly's, Mr. Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
Thank you. Court reporters. They're so important to the show that we change them every single time and don't really give people a chance to latch on. Everybody loves court reporters. That's why I'm reporting this 3rd. And the nominees for the Mumbly Mumblerson Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Court Reportership are Benderson Cooper.
Yay!
The very real Mumbly Mumblerson.
I love that guy! He's the real Mumbly!
And last, but certainly not least, Grumbly Grumblerson.
He's not that nice.
And the winner is crinkle, 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 crunch, crunch, crunch. Grumbly Grumblerson.
Oh my God! Oh wow!
Accepting this award on behalf of Grumbly Grumblerson is Grumbly Grumblerson.
I can't believe that anyone else was even nominated. I'm the angriest son of a bitch at the Gabagool Gazette, and if I don't win next time, I will burn this court to the ground. If I haven't already done it, I love fire, and I hate you all.
I get the feeling that if he wins next year, he's going to burn the court to the ground anyway.
True. I wish it wasn't. It was actually not our meanest acceptance speech today. So, should we have Big Ben then?
For my recommendation this week, I'm going to go a little off topic just because I recently finished what felt like a monumental undertaking. I was fortunate enough to visit Japan last November, and I thought, hey, why not read that epic Musashi written by Eiji Yokosawa, that 984 epic tome as thick as a steak, and is about as fictionalized account of the actual figure, Miyamoto Musashi, who famously never lost a sword duel and invented the two-sword style of martial arts. It took me 3 months to finish. I just barely finished that book. And the book is not at all accurate to his life, but it is the source most people think of when they hear his name mentioned. And it's the one that's been adapted numerous times. Thrice in my recommendation today, the Samurai Trilogy. Or if Maynard can't find a poster for all three and is too lazy to make a poster template with all three separate pictures, damn it. Fine, then I recommend Samurai 1 Musashi Miyamoto. Found in the lovely Criterion box set, who else? The Samurai Trilogy stars Toshiro Mifune, again, who else? As Takezo, as he leaves a village to fight the Battle of Sekigahara, which is the battle that the series Shogun actually leads up to, in hopes of becoming a samurai for fame and fortune, and all that lustrous, all that comes with that great position, but he ends up on the losing side. Throughout the trilogy, Takezo learns through adversity and becomes reborn mentally as Musashi, who is much more reflective and comes to see the way of the sword more as a way of life than a pathway to fame. Every experience, from the grand to the simple, are learning experiences for him. And if you don't like the 50s samurai films because they're in black and white, this one is actually in color, although shame on you for not watching films in black and white.
Yeah, what are you doing here?
Wait a minute, weren't we just shitting on Maestro for that black and white? I forget.
Yeah, but back then they didn't have a choice. And coincidentally, Ben, you're our next presenter.
Oh, am I? Our next category is not a especially prestigious one, which many ways makes it our most prestigious, I would argue. If you think about it, our Worst Defendant of the Year awards. We assembled our least favorite films that were found guilty throughout the course of 2023 and voted our least favorite out of those. Now remember, this is based on the film itself, not the cases or the attorneys involved, just strictly on how painful it was to sit through them. And the nominees are Ballistic, X vs. Sever, 2002.
Wait, would be cheering or booing?
All of them.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2022.
Boo!
Freddy Got Fingered, 2001.
Foolish.
Oh, God, no, that's awful.
Eternals, 2021.
Boo!
No, I appreciate the symmetric 20-year gaps.
I know, I did too.
And the winner, or I guess I should say the loser, is Ballistic, X vs. Sever.
So we should cheer that it won because we hate it.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's just boo it.
Accepting the award on behalf of Ballistic X vs. Sever is a local dumpster fire.
All right. Well, I got my own little recommendation. 2023 was really the year of the biopic. And since we pitted two of them head to head, I thought, why not recommend one? I'm recommending Dumb Money from 2023. A large group of retail investors connected by an online community and spearheaded by cat-loving YouTuber Keith Gill, aka Roaring Kitty, sticks it to the Wall Street elite by making GameStop the hottest commodity on the market. Although Paul Dano is exceptionally likable as Gil, I'd say this film is a bit of an ensemble piece, which takes great advantage of the film's completely stacked cast. Anthony Ramos, America Ferrera, and Pete Davidson, who apparently does some acting between banging supermodels, round out some of the underdog investors and their family, several of whom the story follows. However, much better casting went into the Wall Street types, with Seth Rogen, Vincent D'Onofrio, Sebastian Stan, and Nick Offerman all having memorable moments, which left me wanting more. Not sure. Also, interesting side note, Shailene Woodley was in this, who was also in Ferrari. So, funny connection there that I hadn't intended.
Great Italian accent, that woman.
Pete Davidson was in my movie, too, Maynard.
Excellent. Everything connects, man.
Wait for this show.
I know. Now, I'm not sure the movie sparked any interest in me in investment because the film doesn't really help demystify it at all. If anything, it probably is a deterrent because this situation showed just how rigged the whole system truly was. Still, it's interesting to see a biopic that's set contemporaneously, relatively, right amid the COVID pandemic, which plays as an interesting backdrop to the story. So I think it's worth your time. I can't remember where it's streaming. I think it might be a
Netflix.
Hulu movie.
It's on
Oh, it's
Netflix.
Netflix. Okay. Well, can
They
you
already-
do the Netflix thing?
Ugh.
All right, good.
I'm surprised they already made a movie about the GameStop thing. That's cool.
I'm surprised they haven't made more. But Paul Dano is really likable in it.
Love Paul
Cinematic
Dano.
universe.
Now,
Classic Paul Dano.
finally, our last category, our last Reelsy of the night, presented by Mr. Mumbly Mumblerson. Thought he was dead.
This is Mumbly Mumblerson reporting directly from the afterlife. Sorry, I can't come back, folks. For our last category, it's Best Defendant of the Year. Again, we assembled our favorite films that were found not guilty during the course of 2023 and voted our collective favorite out of those. Again, this is based on the film itself, not on the cases presented or the attorneys involved. Let me stress again, not on the cases presented, because they're all terrible. And the nominees are Alien Resurrection, 1997. Ooh, I like that.
Of course, that was Schlenzo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shutter Island, 2010.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, Mark Ruffalo sucks.
How dare you, sir? Skinamarink, 2022.
No.
And The Lone Ranger, 2013.
Yeah, they got trains. It's trains.
Let's have trains, mad trains.
And the Reelsy for Best Defender of the Year goes to the Boar Fest known as Skinamarink.
What? Yes! Oh my God. God, the system works.
Accepting the award on behalf of Skinamarink is close personal friend of the film, Bouncin' Bobby Lapierre. Oh, I'm told Bobby couldn't make it. Still, I am sure he appreciates this award, wherever he may be.
Unbelievable. What a memorable Reelsy. That concludes the 38th annual Reelsy Awards.
I want to have one last Reelsy to give out. It's the Lifetime in Cinematic Justice Achievement Award, which is given to our founder and principal editor, Rob Maynard, for your tireless efforts in bringing Reels of Justice to life. Come up here and accept your Reelsy.
It's too real.
I should have gotten the music one.
It's feelsy.
Right, it is a feelsy. I should have gotten the music one. Do you know, Brad, I've never won a Reelsy. 41 years we've been doing it, and I've never won a single one. I've been snubbed every year until they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award. Can you believe that, Brad?
That means they think you're going to die soon.
Oh, no, they're right. But with that, so dies this show. But we want to thank our guest, Mad Brad Gibson. Thank you, Brad.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're going to have you back as soon as you retire, but we want to see the paperwork, all right?
That first Social Security check hits, you're in.
We hope everyone else will join us again as well, as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Count it.
Oscar bait.
And please remain seated as we play our In Memoriam segment for Dylan J. Schlender.
Wait, what?
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.